All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Dabney Lancaster Local Board meeting and call the meeting to order. All of you have had the minutes of our last meeting. Do I have any questions or I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. All right, Dr. Renoni, we'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's great to see everyone. I hope everyone is still being safe and all of you look healthy, and which is always great. So we will go around the screen, so to speak, and we do have some updates from our executive team in those areas. So I would like to turn the first one over to Angie Graham, our VP of Finance and Administration.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been having some freezing up, so hopefully I'll be able to get through this without any connection issues. But if you lose me, that's why. So basically, today we need to have the emergency operations plan approved. And basically, the emergency operations plan is how the college will respond in the event of an emergency. This is like immediate response. If you've had a chance to look at the document, you'll see that there's emergency procedures in there for different scenarios that could happen. Active shooter, fire, different things like that. And these procedures are in all classrooms and they're given to every employee. So you don't have to read the entire emergency operations plan in order to know how to respond. And it's a one-page quick document. Can y'all hear me okay? I sound like I'm getting feedback.
Yep, you sound good.
Okay, good. It also includes emergency contact information for utilities and different things like that. If we needed to call them, we have all those contacts in one place. And this document is on our intranet, so it's available to us, to our employees, anytime they want to look at it or they would need it, if they're on or off campus. Are there any questions about the emergency operations plan?
And Angie, remind me that this is a full review every, how many years? 5 years? I'm
thinking it's 4 years. We have to get a full review. So this year is the comprehensive review. We did not change it drastically because we felt like it was sufficient for our needs and it was working. We haven't really had to use it. You know, the COVID pandemic scenario, that's more using our continuity of operations plan because we're trying to continue to operate in a new normal, a new situation. This is for immediate response, and that was pretty simple for the pandemic. We just decided to close. So in March we closed. So we did not use it. You know, obviously it wasn't a life-threatening situation, so we didn't have to call anyone. We had time to think it out. That's obviously best case scenario for an emergency, but and that's what we did for the pandemic. But we didn't feel like we needed to change the emergency operations plan tremendously. We just made some minor changes to it, update contacts and things like that.
And in light of today's the 8th anniversary of Sandy Hook, this is why we have these plans, and our board chair will sign on page 1, and then I will sign it on page 3. But are there any questions? Okay, later in the agenda, Mr. Chair, we'll do our formal approval, but if there's any questions, Angie can help you. Angie, do you have any other updates from your area?
Probably the only other update I'd like to share is the replacement of the carpet in Backless Hall, because Backless Hall is pretty much in disarray right now because they are replacing the carpet with tile. We've had some humidity issues, and with the building being closed, no one in the office, it's created like some molding. And so we had an air quality test, and they suggested obviously that you clean the carpet. But we have decided that it would be best if we just tore up the carpet and put down tile, so that if we have that issue again, which of course in spring, there's still going to be a lot of staff teleworking. So they're not in their offices. Like I think my office was the worst for air quality. And it's because I telework. So my office door stays shut. And so it creates airflow issues. So we decided to replace the floor. But, the bottom floor, Backless Hall, is pretty much a mess while that gets done. But we were able to use CARES Act funding because it was related to the pandemic and the college being closed and staff teleworking. So we took that opportunity to use those funds to get that done, so that hopefully next summer, is usually summer's the worst for it. So hopefully we won't have so many molding issues because we are getting the floor done. And it was fairly expensive because we had to put down this special layer on the concrete because of the moisture level was so high. But I think it'll be well worth it. And we were able to use grant funds. So I think that's great.
That's always nice. Okay, any other updates?
No, not for me.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now turn it over to Dr. McGraw and for institutional effectiveness update.
Thank you for that, Dr. Ranoni. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I have two updates from SAC-COC. The first one is related to our fifth-year interim report. You will recall that we submitted our fifth-year interim report last summer. We had to provide additional documentation, additional follow-up on 6 of those standards. The fifth-year report consists of demonstrating compliance for 26 standards and 2 additional reports. Of the 26 standards, we had to provide additional response to 6 standards, and we were notified last week that we are clear of 5 of those 6 standards. We need to provide 1 more report to the commission related to section 6. This deals with number of full-time faculty. The standard is the institution employs an adequate number of full-time faculty members to support the mission and goals of the institution. So we were notified last week that additional response is required. We were, as of last week, we were placed on sanction with the commission. Dr. Worth and I will be working on that response this spring term with the response due in June. In January, we'll receive a letter from our SAC-COC vice president, who's our primary contact with the commission, that will explain how we were found not to be in compliance and demonstrate what we can do to demonstrate that we are compliant with that policy. It is worth noting that 6.1 is a core requirement. This is the most common standard that issues struggle with the fifth year and with the decennial. So it can be a little tricky to demonstrate compliance with 6.1. It's also worth noting that of the institutions placed on sanction last week, we were the only institution to only have to respond to 1 standard. Most of the institutions, in fact, all of the other institutions who were placed on sanction have to respond to multiple standards. So usually when there's an issue with 6.1, there's also issues with the other standards related to number of full-time faculty or adequate faculty. And that's not the case here. We only have to demonstrate compliance with 6.1. It just happens to be a core requirement. The other thing I'd like to update the board on, which is an information item, is largely procedural. The commission's substantive change policy has undergone a review. This is the policy that informs colleges of when we need to seek commission approval for program changes, like adding sites or eliminating sites or changing delivery modes. In one regard, the policy has been made more clear. They've gotten rid of some terms that are very ambiguous and hard to interpret, like significant departure and phrases like that. So in one regard, it's much clearer, but there were 120 changes. And at first review, I think 70 of those changes impact us and our procedures directly. So I was just notified, had my first training about that new substantive change policy last week. I'll be wrapping my arms around it in the weeks to come. And as soon as we know what changes are needed, that'll inform policy changes here locally. I'll inform our program heads and of course curriculum and instruction at that time. May I answer any questions about either the sanction or the new substantive change policy?
What was 6.1?
Point one is the standard is the institution employs an adequate number of full-time faculty members to support the mission and goals of the institution. What's interesting is that usually when colleges are found non-compliant with 6.1, they're also found non-compliant with the standards that relate to faculty qualifications and number of program faculty and program coordination. But we were found in compliant with those three. It's the only information we have is that it relates with the number of full-time faculty to carry out the mission. The letter we receive in January will have the findings from the offsite committee and will tell us exactly what the issues are. But at this point, all we know is that we're placed on sanction and that it relates to 6.1.
Well, good for you for beating the averages there.
Well, yeah. And based on what the VP said to me by phone last week, when she called, she said it was more, if I'm understanding, it was more about how we determine how many faculty in certain areas do we need. Is there a magical formula or a process? They like process. Whether they agree with the process or not, at least then we have a process and we put our questions into that process. So we really are speculating, but once we get the letter, which won't come until about the second week of January, it's certainly a concern and it's something we must address, but I think we're going to all still have a pretty good holiday over it.
Do you think you'll have to change the formula that you use, or you'll have to hire new staff?
It may be a little bit of both. We know where we're lacking in full-time faculty, but we also understand that everything ties to budget and it ties to FTEs and everything. So we are, Ben could rattle off the top 5 in a row of faculty based on priority, pretty much. So we know exactly, a lot of that. We always try to add a new faculty member every year. We haven't been overly successful because of the budget. But what we're trying to do, like last year, we added a second science teacher. Okay, for a number of years, we only had one science teacher. We added a second full-time science teacher. And we do have needs in other areas, technical side, but also general ed side as well.
I'll also say that I think it's unlike the commission to give us a recommendation of hiring faculty member in specific programs. So I don't think commission will say, oh, hire one more English faculty member and you're fine, or hire one more math faculty and you're fine. I think what's more likely is they'll say, define the threshold, put it in policy, and show us that you follow that policy.
Right.
Matt, you put that exactly right. And your question, Marilyn, was a really good one, which is what is that threshold that we set for hiring another faculty member? How do we use the data that we gather to determine that need? I suspect it's something in that area.
Right.
Thank you.
Matt, any other update? Anything else?
No, sir, that's all from the commission.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So now we'll turn it over to Dr. Wirth for academic affairs update.
Thank you. So as a follow-up from the last local board meeting, I'm providing you with some data on dual enrollment. Dual enrollment's been a real positive for us in terms of our overall enrollment figures. We are up overall in dual enrollment this year, and actually that, because of the growth that we've had in dual enrollment, it's one of the reasons why we're one of the few colleges in the BCCS, really few colleges nationally, that are holding and improving on our overall enrollment figures. You know, you can see the data there. We're up in almost all of the schools that we serve. The one exception, we lost a finance instructor at Bath County High School. So you can see what looks like what is a significant drop in dual enrollment in Bath County. Simply reflects that we have one instructor who retired. We weren't able to bring in another instructor credentialed to teach that class. Still hoping to find someone there who can do that. And we're down a little bit at Rockbridge County High School, but have seen growth in a lot of other areas, particularly at James River. And so we're real pleased to see that. You know, some of the challenges with dual enrollment is finding those credentialed instructors. We work as best we can with our local high schools to locate faculty, to you know, encourage faculty to do the coursework necessary to be able to teach classes. You know, generally speaking, they need for the transfer courses, the master's degree plus, or a master's degree plus 18 graduate hours. And it's hard to find the faculty who can do that or who are willing to take on that extra assignment. I want to thank Michelle Kasich, who's our early access coach, who has helped lead dual enrollment over this last year. It was because of a lot of her hard work that we've been able to do a lot more growth with dual enrollment. And it's increasingly a really important part of what we do as a college. I'm really excited to see a lot of good things happening with the transfer from high schools onto four-year schools as a result of the Transfer Virginia initiative. And that's having an impact also on dual enrollment as well, as more students see that the courses that they're taking are now on state approved lists that will allow them to transfer that credit onto a four-year school, and that they can cut down the amount of work they have to do at a four-year college. So very happy to see that happen. The other update I want to give you is we're right now in the preliminary planning phases for summer and fall. That's a topic on a lot of my faculty's minds and a lot of members of our community. What will our summer and fall look like? We are planning right now a summer that will be largely online. Historically, the summer classes have moved towards online, with many people traveling. With, you know, we see the bright light around the corner. You know, the good news with vaccines being shipped out is a positive. When they will finally get to the large percentage of the population that will allow us to come back full time, we don't know. The planning that I'm doing with my program heads for the fall semester, we're planning as if we will be back on campus. I'm optimistic that will happen. We also are putting into place the contingency plan should we not be able to open fully, how that will look. But we've learned a lot over this last year. We know that there's some classes that if we have to run through the Zoom like we're meeting right now, we have the ability to do that. We're also learning how to be really efficient on campus to allow for students to meet safely. Many of our labs and other hands-on classes, welding, nursing, our science labs, those classes are meeting on ground, but with social distancing in place. We found out ways to do that successfully, so that if fall we're not able to open on ground the way we hope we can, we at least have a backup plan for that. So I'll stop and answer any questions you have, either about dual enrollment or about some of our plans for scheduling in summer and fall.
With dual enrollment at Rockbridge County High School, we've lost 20 students there. Is there any trend you could identify that might be causing that loss?
Well, Rockbridge County went fully asynchronous this past semester, and I think some of it comes out of the COVID situation. But no, I don't have a good answer for why we haven't built there the way I would like. Some of it is also some retirements of some instructors that we had used for dual enrollment, and seeing that those faculty get credentialed.
Ben, if I may speak up on that, Rusty, I would ask us to kind of look at the big picture of dual enrollment at Rockbridge instead of looking at it. There's always going to be ebbs and flows, but where Rockbridge is now as compared to where it was in 2014. I started off as the college's first dual enrollment coordinator, and we had less than 40 students enrolled, primarily in occupational technical programs at Rockbridge County High School. And we've grown to almost over 400 students taking dual enrollment classes annually at Rockbridge, and that's unduplicated. So the growth there over a period of time has been tremendous. And I think it's important to note that this year at Rockbridge will be the first cohort that graduates in the early college program with their Associates of Arts and Science and General Studies degree. I think it's about 15.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's been a real exciting thing with dual enrollment, both Rockbridge, Allegheny High School also having students graduate with their associate degree.
In the past, there's been a sort of tension between the advanced placement courses and the dual enrollment, and I don't know whether that's still in effect or not.
It's still there to an extent. If the students are staying in state, the dual enrollment, it makes a whole lot more sense. And I see plenty of students who go the AP route and then don't get that score they need in order for the class to transfer. In some schools, it's as high as 5 on the AP exam. So
right.
we definitely can make a very strong case for why dual enrollment is a good choice for our students.
But Rusty, our relationship at Rockbridge County High School has never been better. From superintendent, principals, that type of thing. The relationship is certainly stronger. The only thing we're still trying to convince Rockbridge to participate in is Governor's School. And that, I think we've made some inroads because Eddie Graham even was able to go and present to them in the fall, which in the past, they were never even interested in hearing about, even finding a way to participate. So I just think that the last 4 or 5 years in Rockbridge, it has certainly blossomed.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Ian, what do you base this increase in Botetourt
Um,
on?
no, it was although she lasted only about 7 months, it was the previous superintendent, because basically every college, and this is a flaw in the dual enrollment system in Virginia, every college relationship with high schools charge a different rate. Virginia Weston charges significantly higher than we do. Okay. And 2 years ago, we were asked by Botetourt administration was to charge the same rate that Virginia Weston was charging because they would not reduce their rates. And we lost 83% in enrollment because they were charged about $53. And obviously James River, Botetourt, for those that don't know, have 2 high schools. James River is our side and Lord Botetourt is Virginia Western. And James River is lower income side. So for $53.50, and the school was not paying any of the cost at that time. That was almost $160 for a 3-credit class when normally we were charging only $25 a credit. So we lost those 83%. And what the difference is this year, even though that superintendent was there a very short period of time, they realized that they made a mistake. And Botetourt's another one. Over the last 4 years, our relationship with them has really increased significantly. And they have a career coach in Botetourt High School. Plus, we are offering dual enrollment back at our rates to James River and those students who are at BTech, the tech center, who are designated as our students. That's what the increase. We had a blip. We would have probably been up overall in enrollment last year if it wasn't for the Botetourt situation.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Ben. We'll turn it over to Gary Keener in Workforce.
Okay, good evening. Let's see, make sure I'm not on mute. That's good. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be with you. First of all, as I normally do, I'll give a quick update on our Fast Forward Credential Program enrollment status. Total enrollment for fiscal year 2021 stands at 166, and that's as of December 6th. That includes a period July 1, 2020 through 12/10/2020 at 166. And you break that down, Fast Forward enrollment update for the summer-fall session, which is July through December, was 130. And enrollment for winter-spring session, which is July through June 2021, which we're enrolling now, stands at 36, with many already in progress at this point in time. We're on target to equal and hopefully surpass last year's enrollment. Last year's total enrollment was 222, so we think we're in pretty good shape to get there. I will mention that the VCCS as a whole is down about 34% in fast forward enrollments at the last meeting we had a week or so ago. And it's I'm not sure why, and hopefully everybody will get caught back up. We're at about equal, so hope to stay there. You always want to do what you did at least the year before. Hopefully a little bit of increase. So that's what we're shooting for. CDL still is the leader in enrollment, and CNA program is now number 2, and I'll explain a little bit about CNA in a minute. But and that's at this point in time as well too. So things looking good. Moved everything to virtual. We have to give it to our Brooke Sheehan, who is our career coach, a fast forward career coach. She handles all the enrollments, advising enrollments, and actually handles the financial aid portion of it. And she has converted everything to doing everything, even as far as transferring paperwork in a secure fashion, so we can do that and still be effective in enrollment for our programs. The next update is the Fast Forward Certified Nursing Assistant CNA program has taken off from an enrollment standpoint. And this is great news because we constantly hear from healthcare facilities that they desperately need CNAs, and from individuals interested in training to be a CNA. However, we have struggled, and I mean struggled, with low enrollments. When we offer the program, in some cases have run classes at a loss just in order to provide the training. We have people that wait on the class, and then we try to push it back to get more enrollment, but sometimes we just have to bite the bullet off the program, take whatever loss. So we got to be fair to these students. Again, we have the facilities need the individuals, so we do that. Don't like to do that. Obviously, we want to at least break even, but we're just doing whatever we can do, have them. And it appears the reason for this is that DSLCC partnered, which many of you probably know, with TAP and a grant, and it's called Career Forwards, that supports 3 programs: CNA, phlebotomy, and CDL program. And that program includes wraparound services, and this has had a direct impact on our CNA program. The services include support for child care, a stipend for time spent in the classroom, additional advising, along with tuition support, which we already had tuition support. Tuition was not an issue for us. Most individuals took the class for little to no tuition. for the most part. So that was never a problem. It was the wraparound services that appears to really is what's making this happen. And you go back to, I said that it covers phlebotomy too. We haven't started the class yet, but it's full. I mean, it doesn't start till March, but it's already full. So we're seeing these things. CDL, I mean, it has a pretty good history of enrollments as it is, but we're seeing obviously those programs go up a little bit. And I say all that because, you know, these wraparound services have a major impact on many students' ability to enroll and complete training. When we all know, being in this business, that those types of services really help for individuals that, you know, need that support. So it's been I mean, we've only been in this grant about a month and a half, and it's really shown the support. It shows what those wraparound services can really provide. And again, we hear this over and over from facilities. They need people. They need people. So finally, we're able to go, hey, we got a class coming out. We got a full class. We just finished a full class not long ago, and then we got another one in progress. So I'm able to call, come and say, hey, we got people coming out. Of course, they can't come to the classroom, but we would invite them to the classroom to come and say, hey, we've got openings for individuals that finish the program. So that's something that's been really a very positive fulfillment for me to see this be able to happen. And I'm very glad to be able to report that, because I think it does show what those services, how those services affect individuals when they're trying to complete programs like this.
Right.
So that concludes what I have. I could give you a lot more at this time, but I don't want to take all your time. And I will say we just received another new tractor on campus to add to our CDL program, so that the fleet has grown a little more, so we can provide. Our next step is, as I mentioned before, is to set up a unit in Rockbridge County so we can work exclusively out of Rockbridge County as well.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Gary.
Have any questions? Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Dr. Cook.
Hello, everybody. I have three areas to talk to you about. First and foremost is our scholarships area. Last year, we ended very well with 216 applicants for the scholarships, with 149 awards to 123 students. In the high school area, we ended up giving 50 of those to high school students that applied. Allegheny High School was the biggest recipient of about 27 scholarships. And in Rockbridge County, Perry-McClure, we had 9 total, Botetourt with 2. And then we had Covington at 7 and James River at 3. With that, we also give out the Dabney Promise. Now the scholarships are merit-based. Dabney Promise is needs-based. We ended up doing an average award to those of needs-based of over $2,055 per student. We ended up serving 62 students with that. So that was a great number for us this last year. This year, we started the application process on the 2nd. We end on February 23rd. I've already met with Joe Hagee's team and Suzanne Osling and the career coaches to give them a briefing of what the scholarship process will look like this year. We're also going to try to meet with all the other guidance counselors within the schools. Dawn Yvonne is helping me reach out to Sonia Howell, for example, at Allegheny, and we'll reach out to those and to those that are in the homeschooling network to let them know that the scholarship process has opened. The link is up where we have a software that processes all of that. That still has to be collaborated with the SIS system with Joe's functions there, but it'll be done probably this week, and so we'll be able to start processing those. If you know anybody applying for scholarships, remember that they do need to fill out the FAFSA. It's very important that they are Title IV eligible, so they do their financial aids for them to be processed through the system. The second thing is the REV. Today is the last day for the Reemploying Virginia. I don't know if Joe's going to get into more of that. The only thing I'm going to say is that that window closes at 5 p.m. this evening. So in about 20 minutes, that ends. I don't know the numbers from our end, how many applied for it. Again, I think that's within the student services, but we were with the website in institutional advancement, we were able to process those applications and give them to Phyllis Bartley through Joe's team there. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is food insecurity. we had 68 apply for the CARES Act of $300 apiece. Of that, 9, so 50, 9 of those were served. 9 of those did not qualify. Those that did not qualify, we ended up sending Kroger or Food Lion gift cards to them, $50, so that they could have food on their table, at least for Thanksgiving and the holiday season. We've received a substantial amount of funding from the Virginia Foundation, the Community College Education System, and through their processing. And we do have a significant amount of funding within the foundation. So we believe that we're still confident to handle any food insecurity needs that come to us. That was quick, down and dirty. Are there any questions?
That's great, James. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think what's amazing is, Dabney Promise started with probably about, I think that first year, we probably gave maybe 40 scholarships with an average of less than $1,000, and now it's in the 60s. And again, it's all private dollars. It's all private dollars. It's all the work of the foundation. We do have a little bit of a small endowment piece specifically for Dabney Promise, but the need is there. The need is there, and so we're really excited about that. And obviously the relief, we're hoping that we get more CARES Act money so then we can give it out to students again, from the feds. But I'm not holding my breath. Let's put it that way. So
John, how's fundraising efforts due to COVID-19?
Well, we'll ask James on that, but for certain areas, they have really exceeded last year, like student help, and it'd be hard to go out and raise money for a building at this point, but certainly funding for other things. But James, I don't know if you want to fill that.
Sure. Thanks, Ingrid. That's a great question. Fundraising is tough around going on around the world right now. What is interesting is that people understand and recognize that the need is greater because of COVID, that we've had to adapt quite a bit. We've had to raise money because of like food insecurity, loss of jobs, even money for PPE, et cetera. So we've had donors come through for that. But because that there is a larger insecurity or instability of jobs, there's been a hesitation for our annual funds or those type of pledge funds that we would normally receive through payroll, et cetera. But it doesn't mean that we can't understand or sympathize and still ask, but we recognize that the retention of donor giving substantially through each year will be on the decline for probably for the next year. What we've seen in the four-year universities, enrollment is down 33%, which means alumni participation is down, which means donor giving is down. And what we have to do is really show that there's a need for those that are trying to change their vocation. Where we're going to focus efforts will be on those foundations that are looking to help those students that are changing their career focus, or really the BIPOC population as well. So we can probably hit those private funds and foundations and talk to them about that and what we can do at Dabney. But again, there's a lot of schools competing for those dollars.
Great. So for student services, we'll turn it over to Joe Hagee.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Noni, and good evening, everyone. I had it at the bottom of my list, but I'll go ahead since Dr. Cook brought it up. We'll talk about REV, the Reemploying Virginians initiative. Today is the last day. That was a partnership with the state and the VCCS in terms of students enrolling them in G3 eligible programs. That was the Get a Skill, Get a Job, and Give Back initiative that was scheduled to be implemented this fall. That was delayed because of COVID in March. And so we are looking at students that lost their job due to COVID, or their position was downgraded and they were making less than $15 an hour. We had over 300 inquiries. When you're looking at those that came in through the VCCS portal as well as our own webpage, I think we are up to about 25 students that were actually qualified for funding. So the interest was there. But because the requirements to use the funding were so strict, we had very few students that were actually eligible for that funding. So for REV funding, students that enroll full-time receive $3,000, students part-time $1,500. And unlike other grant programs and initiatives, these are first dollars in. So that's going to be a big boost for those students that are eligible. I'll talk a little bit more about how that impacted our retention efforts and how we sort of have shifted here in a little bit. Just some quick staffing updates. Last time we talked, we were looking to fill a few different positions. We have replaced our career coach at Bath County High School, as well as at Rockridge County High School. And as Dr. Noni discussed earlier, we do have a career coach for the very first time with the school division supporting that position financially at James River High School and at Botetourt Technical Education Center. We are also hiring for a full-time financial aid technical assistant. That position's been vacant for a while, so we're happy to have that position posted and look to fill it shortly, as well as a part-time records and graduation coordinator position, as well as a fourth career coach position at Allegheny High School. Many of you know her well, but we did have a retirement. Cynthia Boatler retired from her position as student activities coordinator after 17 years. So losing a lot of institutional knowledge and somebody with a passion for student success. She did a wonderful job in that role. We're going to miss her dearly, but we will look to fill that position in the near future. Gary Keener referred to the grant that his program has deployed here recently and talking around wraparound services. And one thing that I wanted to discuss or bring up today as an update is Single Stop. And so this is a new initiative from the BCCS. It is a model dealing with wraparound services that addresses non-academic barriers. It's a model that effectively identifies critical student needs and provides comprehensive and readily accessible interventions and resources to sort of address those barriers to student success and retention. So this is across the entire BCCS. We are in the planning phases right now in terms of how we will roll that out and scale up on our campus. We've identified a lead that is myself, and I'll be working with folks around campus and other departments. But we have seen an increase in non-academic barriers for our students. And so that is really preventing them from completing and being retained semester through semester. So our hope is that this will be that solution to really point them in the right direction. Last time we talked, also, I let you guys know that we have a new online, new student orientation. We transitioned from an on-campus or on-ground event to an online event, and with the hope, again, pre-COVID, that we would have a big campus gathering for new students every year, instead of having multiple new student orientations. That's more information driven rather than community building. So I'm happy to report that since August, we've had 234 applicants that were directed to the orientation beginning. We have about a 77% completion rate in terms of those that have started that have completely finished the application. And out of those 54 students that have not completed the application, they've been within the last 2 weeks. So students are accessing the orientation, going through it, and completing at a very high rate. A lot of positive feedback from students. It's very easy interface. So excited about that. SIS 9.2 and SIS Fluid, these are two initiatives and updates that are happening right now across the system. We are in the process right now of doing testing in 9.0 to make sure that everything transitions or pulls over to the 9.2 platform correctly. And then Fluid is a new mobile platform that is going to make that interface for students in mobile applications. We know folks are doing more on their phones and on tablets to make it more user friendly, more app-based with like graphics rather than text-based. With our current retention efforts, currently we ran a successful re-enrollment campaign in EAB where we had in the month of November, we had about 20% of our student headcount re-enroll in classes. The number before Thanksgiving break was a lot higher than I think I would like and Dr. Arnone would have liked, but we currently sit at 211 students eligible to return that haven't enrolled in classes. That number was at 436 before Thanksgiving break. A lot of that had to deal with students not necessarily knowing about where we were going to be in the spring. We had communicated early in September that we were going to be online and the format was going to be identical to the fall semester. But a lot of the retention efforts and things that we do normally shifted because of REV. That's that Reemploying Virginians initiative we talked about earlier. Very labor intensive, but now we sort of shifted back and we're seeing a lot of progress in getting that number down. We're about 50 students more than where we should be right now. So we definitely want to get that number down. We've enrolled about 34% of our spring 2020 prospects. So that comes from events that we've done, inquiries through our admissions page, as well as applicants themselves. And so for the 66% of students that have enrolled, we are reaching out to them as well in terms of encouraging them to register for classes, meet with an academic advisor, et cetera, et cetera. I know that was a lot to digest. A lot of initiatives. Initiative fatigue is a term that we've used recently in meetings. Any questions about retention efforts, outreach efforts, REV, single stop, anything?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
From the HR side, I just wanted to let you know, Joe talked about some positions and other positions. We have filled one of the groundskeeper positions, but we still have 6 open positions and are not getting a lot of applications. They're both part-time and full-time. So we're struggling getting applicants even for positions. We do have one full-time faculty, Steve Nicholson, that a number of you know is retiring in May. So we have begun that process for the interview process to begin when we come back from break. We do have a number. So if you know of any good people who are looking for both full and part-time jobs, please send them our way at DSLCC. It'll bring you right to the list of the positions. And, so we're still, Joe's down a couple of positions. Pretty much every department is down. And what was good was the hiring freeze was lifted. So this is why all these positions have happened all at once, the state hiring freeze that the governor had put on. So that's really the biggest thing in HR. And all of you are qualified, but if you employ, then you have to leave the board. So you can't be working so Rusty, if you want to come out of retirement, you'll have to leave the board.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I want to give you just quickly enrollment updates. For fall, we're going to end up with about a 7% increase, which is still very rare. Every person I have spoken to at a national level, when I tell them that we are up, They said that you are, that we are one of maybe only 2 institutions in the country. It's obviously more than that, but a lot of people are surprised, and we're one of 4 institutions who will end up in enrollment for fall, which is great. Now on the spring side, there's only 2 institutions as of this morning who are up. We are 15% down. We are about even where we were with dual enrollment at this time. It's still early, but we, you know, we do try to track. So our hope is, as Joe mentioned, that we can get those at least another 50 by the time we shut our doors for Christmas on the 23rd. We can get at least 50 more students enrolled, and then be able to see where we are. I think the biggest benefit that we have this year is we have actually another week, an extra week. We don't start until the day after Martin Luther King Day this year. So we will have 2 full weeks when we come back, the week of January 4th and the week of January 11th for enrollment, which is something that we've worked on for a couple of years schedule-wise. And it's so important having, because a lot of people, the first of the year, that's when they'll start thinking about coming back for class. And then we always start the second week. At least now by starting the 3rd week, a student can get their books, they can get their financial aid processed and everything else. So we're really excited about that. I wanted to share my screen and share some great activity that is happening. I guess I didn't share the right thing. How come? Let's see. Share screen. Okay. So, as you know, a number of months ago, we started a separate 501c3 called the DSLCC Real Estate Foundation. I have talked about the acquisition of the old Ford dealership in Buena Vista to create a larger presence in the Rockbridge region and specifically be able to deliver hard trade programs such as welding, machining, HVAC, diesel mechanic, etc. So I just wanted to show for those who are not part of, are not in Buena Vista and so forth. Actually, I'm sorry, this is the wrong file. Those were the properties. Oh, let me try to find. I was all prepared, and of course, I had the wrong one. Okay. So let me share my, I apologize for that. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is Forest Avenue here. This is Magnolia where my arrow is. This little first blue dot right here, this is our, this is what is the Ford dealership, which we have actually officially acquired. We own the building thanks to a grant and various other types of in-kind. This is what the front of the building looks like. And it's at the corner, okay? And it's approximately, it's between 16 and 17,000 square feet. With the grant that we received from the USDA Rural Development for $169,000, we have awarded a architect and engineering work to Spectrum Design out of Roanoke, and they actually have begun their work this week. They will be visiting the property a number of times. They had already visited one time. And they will be putting together the architect plans. In addition to that, the next piece, this is the building right here to the left. And then you notice that this little alleyway right here, and those from Rockbridge County can certainly do a better job talking about the history of this building. But this is where the dealership and the service area was, so you would drive your cars in to these bays. I always had an interest in also this building, which is the McCormick building. Well, after speaking to the donor who donated a portion of this building, he offered to me that he would buy this building for us. So as of today, we own both these buildings. And
Did he get it? Did he buy it at the auction?
He did not. He bought it before the auction. Yeah, because yeah, there was a flurry of activity that happened before the auction, and there were a number of properties that were actually purchased prior to the auction, and this was one of them. Okay. I was surprised, frankly, on what he paid for it. It wouldn't have been something I would have paid for.
What did he pay?
$120.
That's a good price.
Okay.
That's 20,000 less than I had
assessed,
building
yeah,
10 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. And it's assessed at 144.
That's what I offered.
Okay. Well, so we own both these buildings. Okay. So now, as part of the architect plan, we can actually, part of the plan is this lot can be part of the plan for the architects, whether we wanted to have a green space or something like that. Maybe leave these two garage doors so we can get equipment in and out, but all of this in the back might be able to be sort of, but the architects were just starting to go through the building this week. They were just starting the building. We have no future plans, no immediate plans right now for this building, but I thought it was important to get this building. So he purchased, we paid nothing for this building. For this building, if you remember, he paid $370,000 for this, as well as the parking lot, which is on the opposite corner. He sold it to us basically for $270,000. So he was donating. So he donated $100,000 toward that project. But we don't have the deeds yet, but we own both these buildings as of today. Andy.
When can we put a sign on it that says future home or, what?
Yeah, we can certainly do that sooner than later. And I had already thought about that. I want to just be, we can have like a poster just made or something.
Well, if you want to give me the words, I'll buy the banner.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Even something we can stick on the inside of the glass doors. The thing I want is, the banner that's on the back of the building that faces Magnolia, where it says go BV. I want all those signs down. I don't want people to start calling and saying, is the building available? And, and I think Skip Ramsey still has his sign on the inside. I've been there a couple of times starting to inventory all of the, there are hundreds of old service manuals for automobiles. And what we're trying to do is maybe sell them on eBay because there is and any of the proceeds would go back into the project. The oldest one I saw was like a 1957. And then the newest was 2003. So they're certainly within that time frame and everything. So we've inventoried probably close to 800 of them so far. The good thing about having the other building is now we're going to have storage, a place to put some of the things that, as we go through the workforce building, that we want to keep. Like there are some desks that are in perfect shape that we're going to keep for the use of that. And then there are others that I moved one desk one day and the thing just fell apart on me. So we're going to back the dumpster up and be able to toss, a lot of those. But the hope is we were still looking at January of 2022. So we'll spend all of 21 doing renovations to possibly have an opening. Any questions about that? Okay, the last item I have under this is, I appreciate, I know a number of you completed the initial strategic planning survey. We had about 200 responses. Not everybody completed every question, but in January, we will go gung-ho with trying to develop our next strategic plan. I will probably be calling on a couple of you for input, maybe in other in another focus. I'm looking at probably doing some virtual focus groups as well. Part of why we didn't get more done in the fall is because the VCCS is doing their strategic plan, and we couldn't get too far ahead of their plan to make sure that that there's synergy between our plan and the VCCS plan. They have already determined their overall goals and their strategies. Now they're working on their tactics. But once we have that, now we can really be able to incorporate, some of those other things in our plan as well. And then the only other thing from a VCCS perspective is the legislative season, of course, begins now. In the state, it's going to be, I guess the House is going to be virtual and the Senate's going to be, try to be in person. They're going to meet somewhere. I can't remember what they talked about, but obviously it's a smaller body, but the Senate's meeting at the Science Museum, actually. This year, the House and the Senate are going to be limited by the number of bills that everyone can then put forward. If you're a House member, you can only put forward 7 bills. And if you're a Senate, a senator can only be put up 12 bills. So I'm glad this year we didn't have anything specific for the college, because we may run out of people to actually be a signer for the bills anyway. The focus is still going to be, which is the governor's plan, a G3, is to at least get that. That certainly wants to be his legacy as he comes to the end of his term. It was mentioned. So we do think that there's going to be money in the budget, maybe not for year 1, which is 2021, but certainly for 2022, to go back to all the work that all the colleges did in the past. And I'll certainly be able to report a lot more in March at our next meeting. Are there questions about any of that before we move on? Okay, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, we're back to our state board resolution on the name of the college and the building names. And we want to open that up for discussion. Anybody has anything to say carrying forward from our special meeting in October.
Yeah, let me bring up the letter, which you all have. If I can just start and say that based on the feedback, and we really appreciate all the candor and the feedback that came up in October. And even subsequent of that meeting, I've heard from, I've heard from a couple of you. I know that our chair has heard from a couple of you as well. And after communicating with the VCCS, I asked them in what format would we propose anything, up, down, sideways, or whatever. And the individual at the VCCS who's sort of the quarterback behind this, he just said a letter would be sufficient. And if the state board and the chancellor wanted more information, we can then provide that. So that was why the development of this letter, which would come from our chair, basically summarizes most of what we heard. I went back and watched the video and all of your comments. I think as our chair and I discussed earlier today, if anyone would like to make additional comments, please absolutely do.
One question, if I may.
Yes, Andy.
What about the Armory? Was that named?
Yeah, the Armory technically has two. If you remember from that grid that I shared in past meeting, I think at the September meeting, the Armory actually has two names, but the overall building is still technically not named. Gary Lee Miller Armory was named after the yes, yeah, the individual who was killed in Vietnam. He's from Covington, and that's really more internal of the building. And then the Hale Collins, after the former legislator, it's called the Hale Collins Convocation Center. I think they just saw opportunities to put names on these buildings. However, since we took it over, I think it's been 4 years this past November. The building itself, it doesn't have a sign like the other buildings that say Wolf Hall, okay, or something. For $1 million, we can certainly talk about it. But that one, yeah, but that one doesn't have, but we did an examination, as I shared in September, of every one of those buildings and the names of those buildings, and nothing came up as even questionable.
But did we address naming the building? I guess was the real question, because I just don't recall that conversation.
Did we address naming the Armory?
Yeah.
We did not. Because it's not technically named. I guess I'm confused by your question.
Well, it has two separate identifications.
Yes.
That went with it, but they were for sections, as I understood, not for the building. They were areas within.
Right. However, I included it because Hale Collins's letters are on the outside of part of the building. I didn't want the perception that the building wasn't, there's a section, and when you walk in, the plaque, it says Gary Lee Miller Armory. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I always saw it as not being named, like Scott Hall, like Backless Hall. Okay. But like in Backless, my board conference room is named after somebody. So I saw both Hale Collins and Gary Lee Miller as being more internal. But if there was a donor who had an interest in the overall building, we would, you know, I would come to you to say, we got somebody who was interested in naming that building. Because you have the authority to approve the building names. The only other building is the facilities and buildings and grounds building that actually only says facilities. That one has no name on it.
Okay. So that's a conversation for another day.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But at this time, as the letter says, that we, even though the state board doesn't need to know about our decision about changing buildings, I thought it was important just to include that.
It's clear. Thank you.
Comments, concerns? Now, let me be very clear. The local board can make any recommendation. Okay. However, the state board can come back and say, we want you to change your name of the college. Okay. All you're doing is making a recommendation. Okay, up or down. I can tell you, to go back historically, there are 6 colleges with people's names on them. I am pretty sure that 4 of them will be changing their names. Thomas Nelson, Patrick Henry, Lord Fairfax, and John Tyler. And I spoke to the president at Paul DeCamp this afternoon, just to make sure we were not the lone wolf. And he said that his board does not meet until February, but based on all the research, he is 99% sure that their name will not, their name will be recommended not to change. Paul DeCamp was a local entrepreneur in that area. The Camp family gave money to the college, and they could not find anything that was of concerning. Because I did think that if all the other 5 were changing their name, no matter what we found, the state board could and most likely would have said, well, since the other 5 are changing, Dabney, you should change to a non-person's name. But there will be at least 2 of us. I do know Thomas Nelson, and I do know that Lord Fairfax and John Tyler are definitely changing their names. I have heard that Patrick Henry will be recommending a name change. Somebody motioned, that's right. I apologize. There are 7, not 6. J. Sergeant Reynolds is the other one. And I have heard that they will not be changing their name. They have rebranded themselves to Reynolds a couple of years ago. Paul DeCamp has actually rebranded their name to Camp Community College. They went through a whole marketing piece and hired a consultant to do a rebranding campaign. They still refer to themselves as Paul D, but if you type in Paul DeCamp Community College, D as in middle name D,
Virginia.
Their website will come up as Camp Community College, but they still have an address of pdccc.edu.
Is that interesting to you?
Questions, comments?
if nobody has any questions or comments, do we have a motion that we send this letter?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Bill and second by Stephanie.
All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Okay,
Oppose?
opposed?
I'm not opposed to sending the letter. I oppose accepting the name as it is, but majority rules, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree.
Okay. Well, and as I said, this could not be, there's a real possibility that maybe it's not done as well.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
It looks like I jumped the gun on approvals. We need to approve the emergency operations plan that was presented to us earlier by Angie. I have a motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that's approved. And as I say, I jumped the gun. We've got the letter here under this category.
That's okay.
All right. Dabney, Lancaster in the news. We had a whole lot of articles that Phyllis worked hard cutting and pasting. Need to look at that. And if there's nothing else, anybody?
I would just like to say that, so in March 15th, we will still remain virtually for our next meeting. And the likelihood, I'm being somewhat optimistic by not putting virtual after June 21st, but I guess we'll take it one step at a time for our meeting. And right now, it will most likely commencement. We're still trying to figure out what to do to commencement. It certainly may look like what we did in September. So if that's the case, commencement will be changed to Saturday, May 15th instead of Friday, May 14th. And we may end up doing 2 of them once again, like we did. I think it was safe. I think everyone behaved themselves. They wore a mask. But honestly, I agree that I think it's going to be at least through the summer, because there will be the vaccinations and who's going to take them and who's not going to take them, and sort of to get back to somewhat of normal, whatever normal is going to look like whenever we get back. So so commencement will most likely, unless we are just completely in the clear, most likely be Saturday, May 15th. And we will probably do 2 of them. I certainly hope we don't have to do 3 in a day, just depending on the size of the crowds and everything. So, and obviously our joint lunch, our joint dinner with the foundation board, which would have actually been last week, had to be canceled. And I just want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday. Thank you for your support of the college, and appreciate everything that you've done since, certainly since you've been on the board, but certainly since March, since all of this. I don't know about you, but I'm very tired. I've looked at my retirement a couple of times, but I'm still too young to retire. So, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. And as Dr. Renoni said, I'd like to wish all of you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas. Be well.
Merry Christmas.